Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gumansing. In our top story, Governor Kenneth Mapp stated in a recent Daily News interview his probable intentions for rebuilding 6 of the 8 schools and scaling the size of the territory's hospitals. News 2 spoke with St. Croix's AFT President Soto Thomas and former delegate Donna Christensen about their concerns for the downsizing of these facilities in the territory. Richard Brown reports.
Recent statements by Governor Mapp may allude to a scaling down of the amount of schools and the size of hospitals in the territory. Governor Mapp, in a Daily News article, stated that our school population isn't what it used to be. I don't need to build back 8 schools. Maybe I only need to build back 6. The governor also stated, we don't need to put another 150 bed hospital. If we built hospitals half the size, we won't have the hurricanes run them down. With these statements from the governor on 2 of the major rebuilding projects in the territory, News 2 explored some of the factors that may play into the outcome of rebuilding these central public institutions. St. Croix AFT President Soto Thomas shares with News 2 what her concerns may be in regarding to the rebuilding and reconstruction of schools in the territory, especially how it affects her members.
I think that we need to be careful relative to the data, because you need to have data, substantial data, tangible data, for you to make those kind of serious decisions, okay? Because I know when we were shuttering the schools a few years back, we shuttered Elena Christian, and we also shuttered Charles H. Actually Evelyn Williams, okay? And we did away with Charles H. But my point is, Alfredo Andrews took on some of Charles H. students, Claudio Marco and Rivera School took on some of Evelyn Williams' students, and, you know, there were some challenges there in terms of the workspace, in terms of our classrooms, the availability of classrooms, even for special subject teachers. Special subject teachers had to walk around, okay? Classrooms were full to capacity, all right? That was the complaint of a lot of the members there. So I anticipate if we thinking about combining schools or what have you, we need to be careful about the population.
Former delegate to Congress Donna Christensen shared her insights in regards to what data is necessary to support the decisions in reconstructing the Virgin Islands.
I would hope that in both the hospital and the school system that a plan would be developed based on data and projections, and not just because we think it should be smaller, but really geared toward, in the case of the hospitals, what has the hospital census been an average? What do we project? What are the plans that we might have for the future of our hospitals and our healthcare system in general? And the same for the schools. So I would hope that we would move forward based on data, evidence, and planning. We need to just build back a Virgin Islands that is resilient and able to grow.
Richard Dorsey, News 2.
Thanks for that, Richard. With many issues facing the recovery efforts for the territory, reconstruction of schools and hospitals are 2 of the major rebuilding projects for the government of the Virgin Islands. Be sure to count on 2. Now, as we just shared, there are 8 condemned schools throughout the territory, and the VI Department of Education and the Senate Committee on Education, Youth and Recreation, they held a hearing to get some updates on the conditions and status of some of the public schools post Hurricanes Irma and Maria. News 2 Stephanie Brown reports.
Since Hurricane Irma and Maria, the Department of Education, along with the U.S. Corps of Engineers, have assessed schools in both the territory's districts. Dr. Sharon Ann McCollum, the Commissioner of Education, testified in a Legislative Education, Youth and Recreation hearing that 8 schools in the territory have been condemned. Dr. McCollum further informed that during Hurricane Irma, the school lunch freezer in St. Thomas, located in Tutu, was destroyed, along with other dry foods, and as such, students in the St. Thomas district were currently receiving FEMA prepackaged box lunches.
The boxes are not designed with quantity, it's designed with calorie counts. Since we're in an emergency situation, the food that they give, whether it's MREs, or these snacks or these boxes, are designed to give a certain calorie count that allows you, the children, to have the right nutrition. This is how they calculate it. This is not us. This is FEMA, emergency responses. This is the way they do it.
St. Thomas schools reopened on October 10th with a teacher count of 441, and 3,296 students were reported to be in attendance. On St. Croix, schools reopened with lower numbers. There was a 159 teacher count, and student attendance was reported at 1,293. The educational complex, along with the Career and Technical Education Center, as well as the Arthur Richard Junior High School, were unable to resume because the school's gymnasium was still in use as a shelter. However, Senator Janelle Saro, who was once a teacher herself, stated that Hurricane Irma and Maria's destruction to the territory's schools was not all bad.
And as we go through the recovery efforts, let's look at this moment, the 5 storm, the 2 category 5 storms, not really as a cost, but as a blessing for us to rebuild with fresh vision. And for us to rebuild and expand at times, we have to destroy a few things.
For News 2, I'm Stephanie Shalana Brown.
Now, there are 6 condemned schools on St. Croix and 2 condemned schools in the St. Thomas St. John district. Well, at the Education Update, the committee hearing, the Department of Education also expressed concern over the safeness of water. In Dr. McCollum's statements to the legislature, she informed that DPNR is in the process of conducting water testing, and once the cycle of 3 to 5 negatives are received per school, school lunch will begin cooking for students. Here's more.
As soon as our supplies are replenished, we will begin cooking. I'm hoping that we only have 1 more week with that.
Are we pressing DPNR for those responses?
We are.
Okay.
We have sat with them every 2:30, every day since the storm.
Okay.
In a meeting, and we've been pushing the issue that these things be done. And so we can't rush the quality because our students, again, their health and safety is important to us. And so, and I think that has been expressed there. So we have been constantly waiting for them to say,
Time.
with a stamp, that yes, the water is good and we're ready to cook.
Well, there are more than 410 linemen on the ground with more than 300 pieces of equipment in the territory. And WAPA announced that more than 300 new poles have been installed in the Frederiksted-St. Croix area. Here's WAPA spokesperson John Greer with the latest. John?
On St. Thomas, the reconstruction of primary circuits continued on the east end, while some service to some customers on Feeder 9C was restored. Crews re-energized Toyota of St. Thomas, Price Smart, Pizza Hut at Fort Milliner, the Church of God of Prophecy and Edith Williams School on the Weymouth-Reimer Highway, with the prospect of bringing electrical service to Home Depot by week's end. Poles are planted in Dono along the Dono bypass and toward Fortuna on the west end of the island. The installation of new primary lines along Feeder 7B from the top of Rappoon Hill eastward is near completion. Crews will begin planting approximately 13 poles from Havenside to BCB Middle School on Feeder 10B before service restoration can be achieved. On St. Croix, crews planted poles on Feeder 8B in Estate Wim. Approximately 80% of the required poles have been set in that area. Once completed, crews will move toward Estate Carlton. Poles have been set and framed from Hannah's Rest to the Frederiksted Post Office. Additional poles were planted Wednesday along Queen Mary Highway. Service was restored to Colony Cove and Feeder 6A, as were additional buildings of the Red Brick Housing Community on Feeder 1A. Work is ongoing to bring electrical service to the modular units at the Wanaflowy Hospital complex. Crews worked on Feeders 7E and 9E on St. John Wednesday and installed primary lines in Estate Pastory. Service restoration in portions of Cruz Bay is expected by the end of the week. There was no hurricane-related damage to the St. John substation. On Thursday, WAPA restoration crews on St. Croix will work in the following areas: Estates Williams, Delight, Wim, and Carlton, as well as in the downtown Christiansted area. On St. Thomas, crews will work along the Fortuna Road near the entrance to the power plant, in Anna's Retreat, and along the Red Hook Road towards Smith Bay. Motorists are asked to exercise caution when driving through these areas. At all work sites, police officers will assist with traffic control.
Well, here's an update from Puerto Rico. Thanks for that, John. A children's hospital in Puerto Rico that was forced to run off generators and ration diesel fuel in the wake of Hurricane Maria has now has a solar power system that will supply all of its electricity needs. Tesla and Puerto Rico's governor touted the project yesterday, sending out multiple official tweets and Facebook posts. And officials said today that the system is already providing solar-generated electricity to the hospital. The hospital, Del Nino, is just one of the solar projects that Tesla says it is planned for Puerto Rico. The hospital, Del Nino, is located in the capital, San Juan, and serves about 3,000 children across the island. The hospital also houses some 30 children with serious medical needs that require round-the-clock care. A hospital spokesperson told the officials last month that they were forced to ration diesel fuel and take other measures to ensure a constant flow of electricity. The hospital Del Nino in San Juan had been rationing diesel fuel for weeks to keep electricity going, and Tesla's system works with solar panels that generate electricity during the day and batteries that store the power and distribute it when the sun isn't shining. Now, earlier this month, Tesla CEO Elon Musk tweeted that his company could bring solar power to Puerto Rico. Keeping our eye on the economy, let's take a look at the stock market watch at the New York Stock Exchange. According to the numbers, the Dow up 71, NASDAQ down, S&P 500 up 3. Coming up on News 2, some information about postal delays and much more. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Governor Mapp Thursday said that his administration is working to address the severe bottleneck of sending and receiving mail through the United States Postal Service. Governor Mapp said his team is seeking to address the postal delays by having mail routed directly from the mainland instead of through Puerto Rico, where letters and packages are currently stuck. He said, "We have contacted the White House, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and the USPS to identify short and long-term solutions." Governor Mapp explained that at least 2 shipping containers of mail are delayed in Puerto Rico. The governor reported that delays with passport proceedings are also impacted by the situation in San Juan and are currently being addressed through the U.S. State Department. He said, "We will keep the community updated about our progress," but he said this matter is a high priority. Meanwhile, the governor is assembling a team from the USVI to travel to Washington, D.C. on November 7th and 8th, where he will join Puerto Rico Governor Ricardo Rosselló to brief the U.S. Senate on the state of the territories following back-to-back hurricanes. Governor Mapp will meet with relevant cabinet secretaries to make a case for the USVI's need for continued help and support for its reconstruction. Also, Delegate to Congress Stacey Plaskett says House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy and House Democrat Whip Hoyer will be leading a bipartisan congressional delegation to the USVI on Friday, October 27th, to survey hurricane damage and speak with local officials on how Congress can continue to support the relief and recovery efforts. Congress recently passed an emergency aid package to provide relief from the recent hurricanes. She said the legislation authorized $36.5 billion to go to the recovery efforts for the affected communities, including the USVI. Count on 2, we'll have more from that. U.S. Virgin Islands survivors of Hurricane Maria and Irma have until December 18th to register with FEMA for assistance, as FEMA has granted the territorial government's request to extend the deadlines and make them the same for both disasters. Survivors usually have 60 days from the date of the declaration to register with FEMA. With the opening day of a DRC in St. John, a total of 7 disaster recovery centers are open across the territory to provide information and help for survivors of both hurricanes. Operating hours at all DRCs are from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The DRCs have logged, they say, a total of 6,063 visits to date. St. John's DRC is at the Virgin Islands Legislature, St. John Annex, on St. Croix at the Frederickstead and Rotary Club West in LaGrange, and Christianstead at the old post office building in Church and Company Streets, Christianstead at the Fire Captain Rensselaer Gibbs Fire Station, Parcel, Estate Cotton Valley on East End. The St. Thomas DRCs are at Tutu Park Mall and the new hotel company Omar Brown Fire Station. Estate Bordeaux at the Bordeaux's Farmer Market as well. Now, if you own a multi-family dwelling that needs repairs and are willing to lease to eligible FEMA hurricane survivors, then you may be interested in the Multi-Family Lease and Repair Program, MLRPs. This FEMA program provides funds to make rental units habitable again, and at the same time helps survivors of hurricanes Irma and Maria. To qualify for MLRP funds, your property must meet certain criteria and other laws. You can contact the Multi-Family Lease and Repair Program by email at FEMA-USVI-MLR@fema.dhs.gov if you are a property owner interested in having your rental property considered for the program. Disaster Unemployment Assistance, DUA, it's available for survivors who lost their jobs as a result of the hurricanes. The USVI Department of Labor, their assistant applicants at these locations: in St. Croix at the Juanita Gardine Elementary School from room 102 to 103 from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's Monday through Friday. St. John is at the Legislature, St. John Annex in Cruz Bay from 10 a.m. to 3 on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. On St. Thomas, it's at the Department of Labor, Comprance and Scada, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. The DUI application deadline for Hurricane Irma is October 30th. The DUA application deadline for Hurricane Maria is November 7th. Well, Terry Pantusco, my good friend, and husband Frank, they want to ensure that no one forgets the furry little pets out there, and they have been distributing pet food, pet supplies at Northside Bistro and today at Alcohen's Plaza. She said this food is free aid. It was arranged by her and her distributors, and it's here for fosters and those who cannot afford to purchase pet food. She's the owner of Purely Paws. Here's more.
After 2 hurricanes, I saw the need for a lot of help with our residents. We have a lot of starving animals. We have a lot of residents who cannot feed their animals. They can barely feed themselves. We have a lot of people who have lost jobs. I am very blessed to have a wonderful distributor, Phillips Pet, out of Lakeland, Florida. I contacted him right after Irma, and basically he said, "How much can you handle?" And I said, "Send me everything you got." So we just got in a 20-foot trailer and packed full over 30,000 pounds of dog and cat food and treats. So we've been out in the neighborhoods helping residents. We've been helping the Humane Society here in St. Thomas, Lucky Paws as well, different organizations, as well as a lot of just humanitarians that have been out feeding a lot of our strays in the islands. I have a GoFundMe page. It's also on Purely Paws, but it's Irma's Paws VI. Irma's Paws VI on GoFundMe. We're definitely taking donations. I've been working with a fabulous veterinarian, Dr. Ryan Ayers. He's been doing a lot of fill-in for vets here for many years. He flew down last week with a lot of medicines. So he's given me a huge box also to take over to Yost and Tortola to help them. So we're taking donations because we have a big need here for all types of, not only the food, but the medications, the flea and tick, the heartworm preventive. We find it very important right now that we make sure that these pets are being cared for and prevented care as well with heartworms. So it's a big problem right now with all of our mosquitoes.
Good job, Terry. Thanks for all that you do. Well, if you're thinking about hopping island to island, just so that you know, the ferry schedule is out, and here's a look at that from the St. Thomas St. John ferry that departs from Cruz Bay to Red Hook every hour on the hour. That's from 6 a.m. to 5. And it also departs from Red Hook to Cruz Bay at 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. and every hour on the hour from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The last ferry is at 5:30. The St. Croix St. Thomas ferry, the QE, that departs St. Croix at noon, returns at 3. Road Town St. Thomas ferry, Native Sun, departs Tortola at 9:30, returns at 2:30. Tortola Fast Ferry departs Tortola 7 a.m. and returns 4:15. Stick around, your News 2 AccuWeather forecast is coming your way next.
Good evening. Not a bad day out there today and tonight. It's going to be pretty nice. We will see some wet weather move in tomorrow. A gloomy day ahead of us for tomorrow. So grab the umbrella and be ready. Here we are taking a look right now across the region. A couple of clouds, maybe a couple stray showers in places, but for the most part, it is pretty quiet and it's going to remain that way through tonight. Now we will have some wet weather move into the islands here tomorrow and also the weekend. More showers than normal throughout the weekend, but not as wet as we're going to see Friday. So 77 degrees tonight with just a few showers starting up toward dawn. St. John, 85 degrees with some brief showers tomorrow, and also in St. Thomas 85 degrees, and you should expect some showers. St. Croix 87, and again more showers than we typically see. Certainly a day to carry the umbrella. For the Atlantic side, for our marine forecast, we don't have any advisories to talk about. 3 to 5 feet for the waves, winds out of the east from 10 to 15 knots. Exact same story for the Caribbean. We're seeing waves 3 to 5 feet, winds out of the east from 10 to 15 knots, and no advisories. So here we are the next couple of days. Friday, it's going to be the wettest day of the next few. Saturday and Sunday, still a couple more showers than we might normally see. But then Monday and Tuesday, it's really going to be drying out pretty nice. Could, of course, still see a stray trade wind shower in spots. And then temperatures are also staying nice and warm with our highs in the mid to upper 80s. Sandy, back to you.
Thanks for that. Let's take a look at our weather picture there by Tavian Morton of Great Minds Summer Learning Academy, sending this picture of what we can expect here and there. Tavian, keep the umbrella handy. Thank you for that. Send us your News 2 weather picture too. News 2 via 4611 Tutu Park, Suite 300, St. Thomas, Virgin Islands 00802. That is all for this edition. We'd like to thank you for joining us with all the latest. I'm Sandra Guman Singh. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Until then, see you next time.